Welcome to The Business of Family, the podcast where we explore the stories, challenges, and opportunities of family businesses. I'm your host, Tammy Buss, and I'm a family business survivor and also a family business advisor. In this show, we will be talking with family business leaders and experts to bring you insights and inspiration so you too can survive your family business journey. Whether you're a founder, a successor, a professional, or just curious about family businesses, this podcast is for you. Hey, I'm fortunate to have two generations joining me. We have Donna and Bailey Pinsonneault. And Donna is the CEO of She's Got Leggz, a woman-led leggings and leisure wear brand based in Burlington, Ontario. And she's a chartered professional accountant, so a CPA, with an entrepreneurial spirit, which again, I don't really remember having those two in the same sentence. She leads the company's vision, operations, and strategic growth, blending financial expertise with bold creativity to build a brand rooted in confidence, community, and impact. And Bailey is a marketing coordinator at She's Got Leggz, and they lead advertising, email marketing, and digital strategy while also supporting the brand through web design, photography, and videography. Bailey is passionate about her creative marketing and visual storytelling, combining data and design to build authentic connections. So welcome, Bailey and Donna.
Thanks so much for having us.
So this is exciting. Tell me a little bit about how She Got Leggz started.
So I didn't start the company. I found the company as a customer in 2017. There was an ad for a pair of skull leggings. I loved it. So I went in, I met the two owners. I kept buying stuff from them. And they said to me, Donna, you should sell for us. And I'm like, well, I'm an accountant. I don't do sales. This is like not my wheelhouse. I had my son going off to university and I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. So in January of 2018, I had my first party, an in-home party. My sister had it in Windsor and I was in Oakville. So I brought my stuff down to Windsor. We had such a fabulous time at this party. It was so engaging and friends and trying clothes on, it was just so much fun. So I loved it. I did a bunch of events that year, and Bailey got voluntold into helping me with lots of things.
Yep.
One of the big things we did that year, we did the Seasons Christmas show up here in Toronto, and I broke record sales with this event. So it was kind of fun because the company was pretty new. So, breaking record sales is not as huge as it sounds, but it was because it was so new. But I finished the year winning top new stylist, top overall stylist, and top partier, which I called my mom and I said, all those years in high school and college that you worried about my partying, I won an award for. So, and that was how it transitioned into, I loved what the company did for women. It allowed women an opportunity to do something part-time that was fun and engaging. It taught them skills about, bookkeeping, inventory management, sales techniques, connecting with people. So in 2019, I became a partner, and then in 2020 and 2021, I bought out the partner, so I became the sole owner, and we've been just growing ever since. We went from 100 stylists in 2019 to over 1,300 stylists across Canada now, and
Wow.
It's just been an incredible journey. I've loved it so much.
Wow. And so Bailey, you were voluntold to help. So what was that like when you were, being voluntold to join?
I mean, at that point, I would say it was more so helping out, set up, and throughout the weekend at those vendor shows and stuff like that. And then since then, because I went to school for about a year doing graphic design, and when I was kind of first introduced to the company, it was like helping out with some social media and a little bit of graphic design stuff. I was like, yeah, sure, like I'm glad to help out. And then since then, it's just kind of grown into a bigger role and more, I would say, more marketing focus. And I mean, it was not what I went to school for, but I will say like that is something that I've just kind of fell into and just love doing. And I feel like I'm learning something new and always willing to take something on. So it's interesting just looking back on how it started. But yeah, it's been great.
hmm And so, really when Donna, when you said, you voluntold Bailey, was that just because there wasn't enough help around? Did you actually want to be working with Bailey? Like, how did that sort of come
Well,
around?
I think it transitioned from like just a couple weekends here and there, and then because we worked with a graphic designer in helping us design the prints for the first couple of years, and then because Bailey went away to school for graphics, and then she switched course and went away for police foundations, which like they couldn't be more opposite. So, but it was having that extra help with it. And then we also had other people in here full time. So it was kind of like part time and then full time. And then she went away to school part time. And it was just sort of guiding us just because she had the expertise with it.
hmm
And so as we brought in other full time graphics and that people, and then when she finished school, of course, we're in the middle of COVID. And I was like, well, you always have a place here with us if that's what you want to do. So she came and helped us, and it just sort of evolved.
Mhm.
And she is, you know she'd be a great police officer, but she's a fantastic graphic designer. So
I was going to say that's a pretty big, as you said, kind of opposite from graphic design to policing. So Bailey, where do you see your future now? Because that is you were thrown into this by your mom and, did go back to school to do a different career. So where do you see yourself and why are you still here?
Um, I think it's just I've kind of fell in love with marketing. I love the creative side that, social media and like graphic design. Like I'm not sure I would call myself a graphic designer, but the artistic side of that I love, and then combining that with a little bit of the analytical side of marketing and trying to find, the right people who could benefit from what we have, and kind of finding our community. Like with our creative side and through the data, I think just really like I just kind of fallen in love with it, and I think that I'm I'm not necessarily like focused on building the policing side of it. I loved it. I loved that course, and I feel like I learned a lot from that. But I think I've fallen in love with what I'm doing, and I'm like I'd love to stick it out and see kind of what I can do on the marketing side of the world.
And so, where do you see this business going now? This is to either one of you. Where do you see it going? Because Donna, this sort of happened by accident, right? You're a
yes.
CPA by trade, and you end up buying this legging and leisure brand company. Where do you see your future?
Well, and that's, you as an entrepreneur, you always have to be evolving. You always have to read the room. Anybody in retail knows the past 2 years have been a struggle. And so you're always looking for building those relationships, collaborations, networking. We did a big technology switch from a traditional direct selling, because we're a direct selling company, from a traditional direct selling tech platform to Shopify, which is geared to online retail. And you have to be open to all of the transitions and be fluid with it. And again, read the room and see where you're going. So it's hard to say like long term what it looks like. There's so much value that we bring to our customers. There's so much that we've grown, like through the podcast, the Nucking Futz podcast that we've done. That's a collaboration project, and it hits with people, right? It's that connection and the marketing end of what we do. We've seen so much growth in that. So, um, I don't know future, but there's
Mhm.
so many positives in peopling. That's just that connection, that
Mhm.
natural connection that happens, and telling stories.
Mhm, mhm. And where do you see it going, Bailey? Because you are of a younger generation, and where do you see this business evolving over the next, 10 or 20 years?
I mean, I agree. Like it's hard to say with, how rapidly changing the world is, and just like, I think one of our strong suits is that we've always been able to adapt through technology changes, through even like style changes and that kind of stuff. And I think at the end of the day, like it comes down to our community. And like, I think the biggest thing is the stylists, like our community of stylists across Canada is like such a huge aspect of who we are. And it's just kind of, I'd say, evolving, like you said, to best serve our customers and our stylists, and especially with the stylists, like supporting their own like entrepreneurial journey. And I think it's so hard to say with, you know, how rapidly changing the industry is, but I think it's just following the people and helping them out the best that we can.
Now, you said you have 1,300 stylists in Canada. Have you thought about potentially moving outside of Canada, or is that sort of a?
We explored an affiliate program outside of Canada. Licensing is a big one, and the affiliate world sort of came in through COVID and changed the way people do business. So it's one of those things that we always have our ear to the ground with. Of course, everything in the US has changed drastically in the last 12 months. But again, like we had our most number of US sales was 2 weeks ago. Surprisingly, I don't know what happened, but you just never know, right? And that's what you gotta, you gotta
Adapt.
yeah.
Adapt, absolutely.
Yeah.
So working together, tell me a little bit about that. How do you sort of separate business from family?
I would say mom does a pretty bad job of it, but is so it is one of the things I try to work very hard on is leaving Friday to Monday, true Bailey time, and not to interrupt her because mom has thousands of ideas over the weekend, and that is something like it could go 24/7. When you're an entrepreneur, you are 24/7, and those ideas happen then. And I have to realize that, you know, as an employee, Bailey deserves that time off so that she can be fresh when they're here for getting the stuff done. And you know, they're part of a team that helps them develop all the marketing ideas. So when Donna walks through that door Monday morning and we go through marketing meeting and all the ideas dump out, they're ready. They're ready for that.
Now, do you have any other family members involved in the business?
Yes. Sean, my husband, is our CWO, and that's Chief Whatever Officer. So
Well, you're the Chief Energy Officer, I
yes,
understand.
I am. I know. And we have a Chief Happiness Officer, which is Bailey's dog. So that's one of the perks. Sean's forte is technology. So years ago, when we switched the technology platform, he led that project. When we switched a year and a half ago to Shopify, he led that project. So there's a lot of that he does. So any of the technical support that gets deferred to Sean. And then, of course, we do a conference once a year and heavily involved in setup and getting that, just making sure everything transitions okay. If we have a big inventory count or, you know, if it's one of our big sales and we got to pull inventory from some of the other areas, then he'll be a part of that. But he has his own business, and so we limit the time with him. And then my son, he went to Western with a business degree, and so he helped us sort of project-based. When we switched over to Shopify, he was very much involved with making sure all of the pieces of the old system were covered in the new system, because you were taking like a wagon wheel that had everything in it and breaking it into the individual pieces through all the little tech stacks. And so we had to make sure when you have 1,300 stylists across Canada, that transition, that training, all of those pieces that look completely different but function super well, are understood and accessible. So he was a big part of that project. And before we went to Shopify, he was part of, we set up a Shopify US to sort of test to see how we did on Shopify. So he sort of managed that all on his own, because like all the wheels are spinning here. So it's more project based with him.
So you are really passionate about empowering women, obviously having 1,300 stylists. And have you had conversations about long-term succession of the business and maintaining that in the family?
We have. Bailey's not much for leggings, and that's okay. So, again, it's kind of, what does that look like? Building a legacy company is pretty incredible, and having the growth that we've had, super grateful for all of that. So, it's always there. It's just, what is it? Like, we have a lot of moving parts because we have a real estate investment company as well. Sean has his business consulting that he works in the racetrack industry business as well. So as a family, we always have had a lot of moving parts, and it's, we come together and focus on the different parts and keep it going.
Well, and like I said, as a empowering women, I mean, in the legacy and the future succession, would your stylist become involved, or would you rather keep this as a family business?
Um, that's a great question. I think there's definitely an opportunity for all of the different scenarios. And, there's so much that we do with our stylists. Our conference annually is a weekend of learning and empowerment, and it's so impactful to those women attending. We also have our Stylist Academy that we set up in the back office that our feeling is that you may only be with us for 6 months, a year. Some of them have been 8 years. And for whatever your time is with us, we want you to leave with tools that you didn't have before you came, and you can take them wherever you go. So, we're always looking for different opportunities and different pieces that we can add into the mix so that we know, we've impacted.
And what do you sort of credit for that growth in stylists? From 13 up, you said you had about 100 and up to
Yeah.
1,300. What was the Bailey, you can say, well, it's because all my marketing and but what do you really credit all that growth?
We had a combination of things. We had another fashion company, a direct selling fashion company, back in 2020 that closed. I'm sure you'll recognize the name Nygaard. Yeah, but most people don't know they had a whole direct selling wing to them. So we had a group of leaders from there that came to us. We also went through COVID, and COVID was very kind to the leggings world because everybody was home doing Zoom in leggings. So we had great success with that. I will say those were our two biggest years, 2020 and 2021. Incredible. Like, we had 400% growth both years. It was crazy. But we continue to tell our story. People find value in the tools that they get, the product that we sell, the environment that we've created. And I think it's just wonderful, the stories that the marketing team can take from a scrambled brain and put it out and make it a well-absorbed story.
I will say, I think word of mouth from a stylist perspective is so impactful, and I think that really encourages others to join the community, because a company can say what the program is and what it brings, but hearing how it made someone feel being a part of that, and how it, for some people, how it changed their lives, I think that is just exponentially greater than anything that we could say.
Yeah.
Like, we can tell you the program, the stats, all this kind of stuff, but hearing it from someone who's really been there is just, I think, so much more important. And I think that is what really resonates with people. And it's just that connection.
So, Bailey, I got to ask you, what's the hardest part of working with your mom?
That's a long list.
I think compartmentalizing and just like thinking that, okay, when I'm at work, she's my boss. When I'm at home, she's my mom. And it's different now because I've moved out. I've been out of the house for a few years. And so I really only get to see you here unless, we do something on the weekend. But it's just keeping those boundaries kind of clear. And I think throughout the years, I think we've got a lot better at that. Of at work, we're at work, at home, we're at home. And even like outside of work, it's like keeping calls and FaceTimes about personal life and not necessarily about work. And I think that
because it could be 24/7.
yeah, and I think that's, I mean, as a business owner, that it is 24/7 for you. So I think you've done a great job of trying to not let that be 24/7 for me. But I think setting those boundaries and getting to a place where we are, I think that was probably the hardest part.
So again, you've got the at home and she's mom and at work, she's Donna. How do you manage when there's conflict at work versus at home? Because I mean, at home, mother wins. I mean, that's just the way it is. But at work, how does that, how do you make that work? Because having worked with my son, it's a lot different, right? It's from a mother's perspective, it's very hard to separate them from being your child. And as a child, it's difficult to separate it from your mom. So how do you manage when there's conflict in the business, not at home, but in the business?
You go.
I think we've kind of always had a good understanding that at work, I'm not your kid, like I'm your worker. And I think in work conflicts, like I think that you've always kind of treated me as such, which I really appreciate. I've never really felt like, oh, I have to do this because you're my mom. It's, oh, you're my boss and this has to be that way and that has to be this way. Like I think personally I've kind of always felt not like your kid at work, which I think is a huge thing, because I know that a lot of people do feel like that and they're just being bossed around by their mom. But I don't think I've felt that.
I think there are things that I would ask of Bailey that I wouldn't ask of other employees, which I feel bad for Bailey on that front, but don't tell her. But I think one of my big goals here was to create a positive team environment. And I think like we're a small company. We're 5 full-time women and 3 part-time women here. And everything, there's 2 in marketing, 1 in customer service, 1 in the warehouse, and then part-time warehouse and part-time accounting. And the sense of team is incredible. For the stuff that we get done by our little team is really good, because we launch twice a month. We launch product twice a month, which is photos and videos. And, we launch to the stylist first, then we launch to the customers, and it's emails for 2 sets. So we're a lot of duplication. So that in itself is a lot. And then we do our other segments, and then we have our events or sales or stuff like that. So it's a constantly evolving thing, let alone when Donna has a brilliant idea that jumps into the mix too, that is like our International Women's Day line dance party, or Burlington Chamber had an International Women's Day event and we gave out leggings at that event. And so it's how to connect. So there's lots of pieces moving, and I think trying to keep it as a team as opposed to Bailey, I need this. But Bailey, I will say honestly, Bailey does get the brunt of the, oh, and I need this, oh, and I need this, and oh, I need it yesterday. And I tried to share that load, but I feel guilty dumping that on a non-family member.
So we're almost out of time, but I got to ask you, you have a podcast. So tell me the name and a little bit about it, because I'm scared to say it because I'm going to say it. I'm going to mess it up, right?
So it's called the Knucking Futz podcast. So you're switching those first two
Yep,
letters,
yep.
which is important to do. And it came about, again, is these collaboration projects. So Melissa, I met when we first moved to Oakville. I wanted to do a flip house. I love real estate. So I wanted to do a flip house, but I wanted to work with a woman realtor. And that's how I got to meet Melissa. We did our first flip house with her. We did multiple real estate projects through her. Then she went off and had kids and did jewelry. She did Brag About It jewelry. And then about 3 years ago, we met for breakfast. We always kept in touch through all the different phases. And she said, can we meet? And I'm like, sure, let's go for breakfast. So she said to me, I'm thinking about, and I'm like, yes, do it. She wanted to go back to real estate. And I knew that was coming because you just know when it's in your blood. And so she went back to real estate. So that was 3 years ago. Last summer, we were sitting having coffee, and I said to her, you should do a podcast where you're talking about real estate because you're so personable and you're so, she's like, oh, I could never do it. I could never do it. I said, what do you mean? Look at me. I'm on I call it TV. I'm on Facebook TV all the time. Like, I'm cuckoo bird. It doesn't matter. Like, people want to know you. And then I said, she's like, oh, I could never do it by myself. And I said, well, I had this idea about doing a podcast, where you're just women in business, moms surviving this and all that. Would you do it with me? And she's like, 100%. So that's how it came to be. And then Knucking Futs was an idea I had when my son was just starting high school about a clothing brand. And so it was just always sitting there. And then Bailey said, she goes, you should call it Knucking Futs because you are Knucking Futs. You both are. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. And then Melissa said her grandma always used to tell her, sometimes in life you have to be a little Knucking Futs. And I'm like, are you joking? Like, it was like that connection. And we just talk about, it really stems around, what would you tell your younger self? Having gone through all the things that you're at right now, what looking back, like, right, do the things that scare you. Just like this podcast, right? No matter how many you do, you're always nervous getting on. But telling your story, there's so many people that are afraid to try something. As a chubby girl, like, I waited so long to do things. It's like, you know what? Just do it. Live life and get it done.
Exactly. I love that. So I like to end every podcast with our guests giving 3 pieces of advice that you would give to another family business. So what would those 3 pieces of advice be? And it can be any combination. Donna, you can give 1, 2, 3. Bailey, you can give 1, 2, or 3. So what are the 3 pieces of advice in total that you would want to give to a family?
I would have a conversation about boundaries and just making sure that you guys are both on the same page of when you're talking about work and when you're talking about family, because I think you don't want to mess with your home relationship and you don't want to mess with your work relationship.
Yeah. I think and I say this to Bailey all the time, like, this is my dream. This is not your dream. So if there's ever a time where you want to go, you go. Like, you are not held here because of me. Figure out what you want to do and go try it. So I think it's that recognizing that keep your lane. Don't make them be in your lane.
Exactly. Okay, one more. Who gets the third one?
I think it's really important, the shutdown time, to have that shutdown time and be different people when you're away from work. Like, just be family and don't be weighed down. Because, when you're running it all and you're doing all the things and you're paying all the bills and you're, trying to make all the content and connect with the people, there's a lot of pieces of it that are pretty heavy and it can weigh you down. And so you got to make sure that stays at work. Right?
I love that. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
What's your website? Then people can go take a look at these leggings.
She's got leggz.ca.
And
it's Leggz.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
If If you like this episode, subscribe to the Business of Family podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can also find Blue Roots on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On the next show, I'll be back with another amazing guest who will inspire you with their family business insights. Until then, take care and keep it in the family. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, investment, or insurance advice. Before acting on any advice, please contact your personal or company advisors.